we have our representation panel. I was introduced our moderator, Frederick Victor, professor and screenwriter at NYU. Please welcome Frederick Victor.
And I would love to introduce our final panelist. Our first panelist is a publicist from 42 West. Her clients include Meryl Streep, Daniel Day-Lewis, Matt Reeves, Tom McCarthy's Spotlight, and Martin Scorcese's Silence. She is Ashton Fontana. And our final panelist, she's a talent manager at Industry Entertainment. She is Ms. Kittrell.
Thank you.
I always find origin stories are very interesting to people who both want to be talent or who possibly want to be a rep themselves. So if you want to start, either one of you.
Great, yeah. I studied film in school. I always loved it. I never really thought, about making a career out of it. I guess it was just, a hobby. I would see a movie on a Friday night, and one in particular, I saw Kill Bill, and I was just blown away. I had never seen a film that made me think about filmmaking. Why did they choose that angle? Why is it suddenly a cartoon? Why is, the camera upside down? It was just kind of one of those moments that make you realize that you want to know more. And so I studied film in school, and I had a lot of internships during my time. I went to Fordham, so I was lucky enough to be in the city, always kind of interning here or there. And honestly, it was the people that I met during the internships, the friends that I made, not the connections, not the editors at magazines. It was the friends that were stuck in like a windowless closet with me, the whole time, that ended up recommending me for this position. Just a friend of a friend of a friend, and they heard of an opening at 42 West. So I've been there for 5 years. I started as an assistant, and then a junior publicist and a senior publicist. So I'm lucky enough to have found a place that I am comfortable, staying in for so long. But yeah, I guess I would say that it's really all about, I think everyone in this room knows that, but it's all about who you know. And not necessarily that you need to know the most important people in the world, but just keep your network tight, keep your LinkedIn always, refreshed. Anyone you meet, link in with them, grab coffee, because it's your friends that really end up recommending you for what you want to do. Just talking to people. So
You all rise up together.
exactly, and I'm proud of my friends and what they do now, and they're psyched for me. So it's exciting.
I spent my entire first chapter of my life as a Broadway musical theater gal. So I did about 10 Broadway shows. And my last Broadway show was Legally Blonde, and I hung up my dancing shoes and started over. I started as an assistant at Gersh, and I have been a manager now at Industry Entertainment for 7 years. So I knew for a good 10 years before getting out of performing that I was going to sort of have a resurgence in a different way on this side of the business when I was ready to stop performing. And I have loved every second of it ever since. And what I love most about it is that I love actors. So every single thing that actors and my clients go through, I get it. I go through every moment of the ups and the downs, and every little, I get excited for every little appointment, and I get disappointed with every moment of bad news, and because I've been there. So that's what I like the most about my job.
I forgot to answer that part, but I guess I get excited, like I said, I love movies, so being involved, even though my job comes in post-production, it's going to the Q&As and hearing the filmmakers say, this is what inspired me, this is what made me make that choice, this is why I made the camera turn upside down, things like that, I get excited about.
That's great. I want to talk a little bit. We all know the kind of clients that you both represent. They're both very high-level places. You've dealt with people like Darren Aronofsky and Martin Scorsese, and you deal with people like Victor Garber and 50 Cent and very high-level talent. What do you look for when you are looking at a prospective new client? What, outside of their credits and their experience level, when you are in a room with them, what do you look for in that meeting?
I guess for my job, it's not necessarily that I'm looking for something in them, it's that they're looking for something in us. You know, they seek out representation because of the roster that we have, because of the people that we know, and because of the style that each person has. And even within each firm, I think that everyone has such a different style, you know, in terms of publicity, how they pitch their clients, how they are protective of their clients. You know, some people, you know, you watch shows like Entourage and the publicists are like crazy nightmares and like they're sharks and they're, you know, they feel that they're responsible for, you know, shielding their clients and being the badass. And some people are much more, you know, relaxed in how they handle pressured situations. And that also has its merits, you know, and I think it really depends whether it's a filmmaker or an actor or an overall film project, which I work on a lot. I think it's your particular style and your expertise that the producers, actors, whatever, seek you out for. So, you know, I think in terms of me, what I look for is just someone who has a vision. It's just people who know, you know, and most of them do. They know why they created this project or what excited them about this project. And I think my job is just to understand that as much as possible so that I can be the mouthpiece and tell other people that.
We look for actors, for clients, we have our actors sort of generally do a lot of different things. You all have talked a lot about actors who sort of create content and have a lot of different areas they sort of touch upon. We look for clients that are trained. All of our clients are theater trained who sort of can do anything. So while most of our clients spend a lot of time on camera doing TV and film, I'd say 99% of them could do an off-Broadway show and be the lead of it. They are all very versatile. Most of them could sort of go between drama and comedy very authentically and very solidly. So we feel really confidently putting them in a room with most casting directors. You know, like with Bess, I go way back with Bess, and you know, when I call her about one of our clients, I want her to trust me that when I'm pitching them that that she can trust me when I say this person is really good. She talked a lot about like if I'm gonna bring in somebody I don't know, I have to know that I'm gonna use this time because I don't have much time to see somebody I don't know. That's where the relationships come in. They have to trust me, so I'm gonna make sure that she can. Another thing too is that when we're looking for actors to represent, it has to be a relationship, right? So you're looking at me to see if this is a relationship, like, do you like me? Do I like you? Like, this is, when the phone ring, I want to be able to pick it up. I don't want to be like, oh God, I don't want to talk to that person, right? Just like you want to, when I call you, you're like, yeah, I want to talk to that person. It's very important. It's a relationship, and hopefully a relationship that will last a very, very, very long time. So all of those things sort of come into play, and that's really important. And when we meet with people, sometimes we can sit there and acknowledge this is an incredibly talented person, and there's no reason why this person shouldn't have the pick of 15 different agents and managers, but I am not the person for this actor, because I want to make sure that I can really take you to where you need to go, and sometimes I'm not the person, and vice versa. So it's really the match. You got to find the match, and all of those things go into consideration before we take on a client. And hopefully the same can be said for you before you make a decision for taking on representation.
I think a lot of people, you know, a lot of creatives, they have an idea of what they want, but sometimes you have to understand that you are hiring a team also for their advice. And just because your publicist disagrees with what you're saying and maybe gives you an alternative, I think there's a trust. You have to understand that they are doing this in your best interest. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of times people will just butt heads. They'll, maybe be a little bit sensitive that their team is disagreeing. They feel like they know best. And it leads to a lot of bad blood because at the end of the day, your team is on your side, and we're all really working for your best interests. So I think, in terms of what we look for, sometimes we do sit down and say, realistically, can we give this person what they want while still being honest and still being true to the advice we want to give them? Because if they just want to hear what they want to hear, we may not be for you.
And part of that too is just style, right? I happen to have a very direct style, and sometimes an actor very much likes that. They like a very direct way of being spoken to, just as I like a very direct way of being spoken to as well. Sometimes you need a little more coddling. I'm not that person for you. So maybe you need somebody who does that. And there are people in my office that do that, so, so there's styles that you need to find too, just, as in a partner, right? We all have, in relationships as in friends, we all have different people in our lives that give us different things. And in a management and an agent situation, it's really no different. Same thing with a publicist.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm totally with you. I'm not a coddler. And, if you ask me my opinion, I'm going to tell you. And sometimes, if you're a little bit sensitive, it doesn't, maybe we don't jive. But I think it's important, especially, unfortunately, because I do think publicists have the rep of being liars. I think a lot of people think that publicists are just born liars and they finesse and bend the truth. But really, I think it's quite the opposite. You're just finding a way to say what you agree that you're going to say. It's just positioning. It's not, nothing is a lie,
I'm told, unfortunately, we only have a few more minutes left.
Bess took up all of our time. I'm kidding.
If you just want to say a few quick words of advice to young talent or people in this business in general.
How about questions?
Yeah,
that's more beneficial. Anybody have questions? In the back.
How do you go about mitigating or managing your clients' goals or potential clients' goals? If they do say, hey, I do want to do Broadway, voiceover, commercials, film, TV, here are my goals with, I don't know, being a co-star on a certain show or whatever. Like, how do you then take that and say, I can do this or I can't for you?
Well, look, there's a whole lot in that sentence. It's about knowing what I can do, what I want to do, what I feel is realistic, right? There's a lot of things. So there's a few things you said in that sentence. For instance, if you were to come to me and say, I want to do co-star work, I would say, I think that's awesome. I'm not the place for you. I don't represent co-stars. I represent people who are series regulars who do guest star work to pay their bills, essentially. You know what I mean? Now, if you were to say, I get it, but I need to do co-star work because I need to, get the experience, and I would sit there and say, these are the ways that we work with you to get the experience, so that you can get there. Because if I see the potential in you to work with you to be your manager, then I see the dream for you. I see the big picture. I'm the manager. I see the big picture. The agent sees the job, to book the job. I see the big picture. So, but as far as am I going to take you on? There could be so many different reasons. Like if you're developmental, how many developmental clients do I have on my list? If I have 3 already, I probably don't have time to take on a new one right now. I need to get the 3 working and then I can take on 3 more. It could be something as little as that. It's no different than when you go into an audition and you see a casting director and they're like, I'm sorry you needed to be a blonde for this job. Right. And you couldn't control that. It could be something as little as that. So sometimes it has nothing to do with you, and you should dream big, and you should dream big all the time. And you will find your perfect person. And in many cases, I may meet somebody, and you may not be the person for me at the time, but I will try and help you find the person for the time because it won't be me, but I believe in you. You know, it just sometimes it's a tricky business. You know, but I always say keep dreaming because it's tough. It's tough, but everybody will find their person. There's no doubt about it.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
Hi, Amanda Florian. At what point should an actor or filmmaker or director, anybody working on a project, say that they need a publicist?
So at least for my company, it's month by month. We don't lock you in for a year because that doesn't make sense. You're not doing something for a full year. But I would suggest that when you start signing on for a project of any type, that you should just take meetings and explain who you are, what you're up to, what your style is. Just get to know people. And again, as we've been saying, it takes a while to find your fit. And it really is it's a personality match. If you find someone that you just feel comfortable around, that you say, I could grab a drink with, that's the person that you relate to and is going to be in your corner. And they're probably feeling the same way about you. So I would say to take meetings and just kind of feel out what company, what specific publicist you feel you could jive with. But I think the value for your money in terms of actually signing on is usually about a month before your play, film, TV show drops. A 1 month for us is a good amount of time to get your bio ready, to start putting out feelers. 2 months is even better if you can swing it because long lead magazines. Let's say we want to get you an Elle Magazine spotlight or New York Times. It takes a while, things like that. But I think 1 month before your project hits consumers is usually the most efficient.
One thing I'd love to bring up real quick before we end this, though, is that I think it's really important to talk about publicists, manager, agents, all of these people that everybody tends to have as far as a team should work cohesively. So if you have, say, an agent but not a manager and a publicist, or if you have a manager and not an agent and a publicist, or any of that configuration, if you want to add another person to your team, you should talk to the one person you already have on the team. That person should help you connect the dots of everybody else on the team, because it will only work solidly and powerfully if everybody is working cohesively. So if you decide to add somebody to the team but they don't work together, it's as if they don't exist.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
I was going to say I know quite a few agents and managers personally who do not care for each other and they don't share clients, and sometimes it's just a corporate thing. Certain companies don't work together too.
Correct.
Right. And sometimes the job descriptions do overlap a little bit. Like in terms of you're going to an event and you need an outfit. Sometimes managers contact stylists. Sometimes publicist contact stylists.
Especially when when your publicist is on hiatus and your manager takes over, and it goes to the publicist and the publicist brings on the manager. It just needs to work cohesively.
Well, and also technically by law, at least in California, and I think New York, managers can't procure work, whereas agents can, and yet managers procure work every day, and then a lawyer or an agent will have to do the paperwork. Okay, one more question. We have time. No?
So my question would be, in working with some of these big names and sitting down across the table with them discussing a project or something that's in motion, for some of these huge names like maybe Meryl Streep or Daniel Day-Lewis, what have you seen in them as actors? What everybody talks about that star power, but how do they compose themselves in business dealings, and also how does that translate onto the screen, like the magnitude and kind of the power of talking with them?
I guess for me, I've had excellent luck with the people that I've come into contact with. I was surprised initially, thinking that the more A-list they were, maybe the more prickly they would be, but it's actually the opposite. I find that the more well-known and high-profile they are, they're actually sweet and kind, and they've been doing this for so long that it really doesn't faze them anymore. They don't need 50 million things in their dressing room before they go on, to do one interview. It's not the hoopla that maybe some others would create to make themselves feel bigger and more important. So I guess that, again, that's my luck, but I guess, and I know that this isn't very helpful, but a lot of these names just have, it really is that something about them that you just, and it's not just because they're so well known, it's just maybe an intense gaze or just a presence, the way they carry themselves. And I think, as actors who are looking to find that something that's yours, I would say it can be subtle, but if it's consistent, I think people will start to pick up on it.
I would just say, of the ones that I have met and that we rep and that we know, it's always because they focus on the work. Everything else is a byproduct of that. They focus on the work, they surround themselves by the people that focus on the work, they get respected for it, and they respect others because of it.
Well, that brings us to a conclusion to this evening. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Ashton.